Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. American Season 5, Episode 4, What's the Matter with Kansas? Meredith and Alonso. That book actually was written decades later, but whatever, you know. The pun works, I dig it. I think one of my favorite moments is when they're meeting with, why do I always forget Frank Langella's name? Anyway, and he's basically asking them to go after the AgriCorp people in Topeka, and they're like, really? Yeah, and they start listing out all the stuff they're doing. It's like, yeah, the show usually kind of blithely doesn't acknowledge that they are burning the candle at about 8 different ends.
And especially given the events of last season, I kind of thought the whole thing about their handlers was cutting them some slack and room to kind of recover and grow.
Right.
But now it's like, no, you gotta maintain this relationship with the Russian family over here. Then you still have to do what you're doing with oh God, why am I blanking on our FBI agent friend?
Stan, right.
And now you have to go make new relationships.
Well, I think the resident tour gave him like a year off or something in there between seasons. I'm now like, nope, now we're back at work. And they've got, and Henry's math teacher wants that meeting.
Henry's back.
Henry's
I'm so
back.
excited.
Henry's back and huge.
Oh my God, he grew up. I'm like, Henry, you're looking quite the looker. What a cute kid.
Puberty kicked in. That kid is like now taller than Matthew Reese, I think.
I have some second cousins I would introduce him to.
We've got Paige kind of putting her junior spy hat on and sniffing around Pastor Tim's house while she's babysitting, which they're totally right.
Yeah.
Like she does not have the poker face yet.
No, but it's cute because it seems like those the teen spy novels that all the girls read.
Right, like Nancy Drew
Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys. That's what it is. She's a young Nancy Drew in training. I think it's cute, and I think it's showing that she is interested in her parents' life. And,
True,
or if nothing else, for protecting herself and her parents. ultimately that's what she was looking for was, hey, has Pastor Tim done anything that might possibly endanger our livelihood? But then, of course, Dad was like, well, maybe, what if there's some liaisons happening in the perfect pastor's life?
Right. It's funny, like Dave doesn't watch the show, but he happened to be in the room when I was watching yesterday. He starts going, wait, so isn't she colluding with him now if she knows? I'm like, yeah, but it's too complicated. Don't make me go into it. Because then later, when Elizabeth is hooking up with the hiker guy and Topeka, he's like, wait, is she cheating? Like, no, do not make me explain this to you.
It's cute. I can't wait till they have that talk with her. To me, that was the most dynamic part of this episode was how both Elizabeth and
Philip,
thank you. First cup of coffee today, folks. How Elizabeth and Philip were reacting, and it's interesting that Philip's like, oh, you like him, you're interested, and I feel this should be a much bigger plot point because usually Elizabeth is the one who's been very hands off. She knows how to put those walls up, but again, we saw those walls come down last season with her friend, and then and then with Philip's whole relationship with Martha.
Right.
I feel like Philip is just tired of this. He's just like, he has no heart in this. The woman he's having to pursue is just. I was almost wondering if part of me thought it was going to be an interesting twist where they make the woman that Philip was pursuing actually a lesbian, and then Elizabeth had to go for her because I could have seen that. But it's interesting if Elizabeth is going to fall for this guy.
It's interesting that the show has barely touched that. That has never come up, and you have to figure at some point. I think there was a flashback in there when they were training where I think Philip had to had to sleep with some older dude or something, but they never go there. But what's also interesting though is that the two of them don't have this discussion much because it's so sort of part of the gig. And so for him to be like kind of catching that, oh wait, you're actually kind of, there's a spark there. Yeah. You're right. It's either that like I'm done with this, or at least it's a kind of acknowledgement of like, all right, so every so often, we dip our toe into this, and sometimes it, And
I don't think for Elizabeth's case that she's particularly interested in this guy. I think it's just he's new and exciting, and how droll and sluggish her relationship with Philip has become. It's just anything new and exciting is gonna entice her.
Sure.
And it's fun. Like they're having fun. Like she said, we've gone hiking. We're doing things that you and I never do, even on our off time.
Right.
Yeah,
and they've got 2 kids to raise. They've got Paige to worry about. They've got all these other plates to juggle. So even in that moment, even though she is on the job, she's at least like doing something that's sort of entertaining. Yeah. It's better than taking the Russian guy out and listening to him bitch about the USSR again.
Though I think Philip doesn't mind that.
No, he's definitely. Oh, and Philip's son has now made his way into the U.S.
So the whole scene of them crossing the border,
that was pretty great.
Good. And then suddenly he just shows up in America. I thought we were going to have a bit more drama.
Well, I think once you get over the Yugoslav border into Austria, then it's pretty easy peasy. Do you think that the guy in the car behind them was an accomplice?
Yeah.
To make it to draw attention.
Because remember, Philip's like, "Who is this guy?" And he's like, "Don't worry, don't worry." And it was.
Yes, he was the guy from the garage. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But every time Misha shows up, I'm like, wait, who's this? What's up? Like he has had such a lame duck introduction that I just don't. I have no connection.
It's a slow build. And then meanwhile, Oleg and Stan, I love Stan.
I know.
Stan is totally throwing himself on his sword on this one.
And I'm so sad that Oleg feels that Stan betrayed him. And I get it. All the signs point to Stan.
Of course.
At some point, I want that reunion, that bromance. It's the perfect bromance. I love Stan and Oleg.
No, they're awesome.
Good friends,
I totally I appreciate Stan for going to those lengths to like nip this whole thing in the bud. I hope that Oleg eventually realizes that that's what happened, because yes, I want that to work out too.
What I like that they're showing is that, especially during late 70s, early 80s America, we were so pro-government, so anti-Russia, and to see that there's even been a fault line developing in an FBI agent who has been so forward with the American agenda, it's showing a dynamics to politics that those of us who lived through or grew up in that time, we didn't know existed, but it was there. Reality, there were people who didn't agree with our Russian policy within our government, and I like seeing that because especially right now, especially how it ties into current events, which I don't even think this was planned. This just to mirror this, but it's nice to see that dynamic, that it's not everything is like go America, pro America. It's like we did some really messed up stuff too, and it's okay to speak out.
That's what's always interesting when you start like reading history and digging in a little deeper. The stuff that we learn as children as these sort of like, even like World War II, the unassailable, everybody loves World War II. Like you start digging into it and you're like, oh wait, we put the Japanese in internment camps, really? I mean, like there are avenues of like, this wasn't all a giant VE Day parade.
But even media from that time was very pro-American. Very few, popular films.
Well, it was the Reagan era. It was very rah-rah, and so but always there's going to be sort of like little cracks in the armor.
But it's nice. I guess I like seeing that. I like to see that. It just shows the level of onion layers.
Sure, of course. Well, plus the fact that in that same period, like the Soviet Union was so uniformly portrayed as this like monstrous beast that we're all out to come steal our blenders or whatever. And so for this show to kind of humanize these people and even have even their doubts. I mean, Philip loves his car, and there are moments where even they question the mission or question the methodology, and frankly, if this is a thing where we actually were breeding bugs to go eat Russian crops, that was shitty.
Yeah,
that was a shitty thing we did.
That would have just been like, come on, guys. And then Oleg, of course, having doubts about his own country is great to see. It's him and Stan are perfect mirrors for each other. The way they've built these characters have been some of the most compelling characters I love on television. Because I'll be honest, there are times with Philip and Elizabeth, I tune out a little because I'm like, all right, same storyline, different day, but it rises and falls, it ebbs and flows with them. But Stan and Oleg have been consistent.
You have those great integrity moments where Stan refuses to go along with this thing, and Oleg doesn't want to attack the guy, use the son in Afghanistan as a way to get to the guy in the food distribution network or whatever.
And it was great to kind of see the interrogator kind of back him on that. Like it was that was not a play I was expecting it to go down.
Yeah. I mean, but you have to wonder like how far does humanity take you in the KGB?
Exactly, right. And also Oleg's mom having been in a labor camp. I'm like, I want to know more about her now. Her story is infinitely more interesting.
I hope that's not just like a nibble. Like I hope that's going to lead us into more conversation about that for sure. Was something else about this episode? I'm trying to think. There was the.
I'm not gonna. I will say when Paige went to go check on the baby and then started like looking out the window for a split second, I was like, oh, maybe she's gonna go sneak out to go have sex with her boyfriend. And I was like, oh no, she just wants to spy. Yeah, that was good. I was like,
she's a good babysitter. Give her a break.
That baby was so tiny. Oh my god. It was a little thing.
It was, and I love the irony of Pastor Tim giving her well, I guess actually it wasn't ironic. He knows.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're giving her a book on Marx. Was like, yeah, he didn't like religion, but he was pretty right on about poverty and the working class.
I think Pastor Tim. There's a lot more there.
There is. I think that's a character. I think that for a lot of shows would have been this very sort of easy caricature, and they're making him complicated. And I like the sort of again the middle ground of yes, so much of the '80s like the pop culture was about like America's great and Russia sucks, and so to have Paige joining a church, but a lefty church, and like kind of a lefty no nukes church, and for her parents to sort of try and find some middle ground there where that can be a conduit for them to talk about stuff. This is, I love the complexity of this show.
Well, now that Kelly Aucoin is wrapped on Billions, I wonder if he'll have more room to bring him into Americans, because I'd like to see this angle of the conscientious objector style activism that really is shaping Paige, and I'd like to see that taken to another level.
Totally.
Because I think that's going to cause a great deal of conflict with her and her Americanism.
Yes, definitely. And again, and I can't help thinking about, because we know we have an end date here, like that we have this season and one more and we're done. And it's like I just find myself thinking, when does Stan learn the truth? And like how, like, is that going to be a whole season of it? Is it going to be just the last few episodes?
I feel like that's the last. It has to be the last season. But now with the way he's positioning himself within and almost against policies in the government, how hard is it going to come down on Philip and Elizabeth? Last season, I would have said he would have pursued them to the end, but now I wonder.
I don't know. I think in the specific case of Oleg, here's a guy, they had obviously the whole Nina thing between them, and then the notion of like Oleg coming forward because like here's a despicable thing that we need to stop. Like having another sort of great integrity moment. Philip and Elizabeth have been, I think he's going to feel super betrayed by them, like especially betrayed because of their whole friendship.
And Philip's his best friend.
Yes.
So it's going to be.
Oh, I remember the other thing. Stan's date, the lady from the gym. What are we to make of her? Like
I think she's an operative.
I'm starting to think that way too.
She's too nice.
Yeah,
she's too perfect.
And she's too otherwise not tied into things. So like that seems to be like her only reason for existence.
Maybe that's just a red herring they're throwing us because
true. Yes,
I will say the show has been very good at being unpredictable.
Definitely.
So maybe finally we're just like Stan deserves something nice in his life because things are probably going to go terribly wrong really soon.
Yeah, like sure, let's have a disposable character. So just because we're going to immediately assume that there has to be some greater meaning and maybe there isn't. So we'll find out.
I like her though.
All right, this show is still great, so great. So thanks for joining us, and come back next week. Thanks.